Welcome back. You're watching The Globe. Now, at least one person was killed and 10 others injured in skirmishes at an opposition party rally in Kwekwe, which is central Zimbabwe, this weekend. The Citizens Coalition for Change supporters were attacked by a group of men armed with spears, machetes, iron bars and stones. According to the CCC officials, one man was stabbed to death whilst others suffered various injuries. The violence forced party leader Nelson Chamisa to abandon his address. The party has blamed ZANU-PF supporters for the violence, a charge the ruling party has rejected. It comes as rights groups are warning of increasing violence ahead of crucial by-elections scheduled for March the 26th. Over the weekend, the country's vice president warned that the opposition would be crushed like lice, sparking fears of new violence. On Saturday, police used tear gas and water cannon to disperse another CCC rally that had been okayed by the High Court. Some 28 parliamentary and 122 council seats are up for grabs in the elections. The Citizens Coalition for Change President Nelson Chamisa accused Zimbabwe's ruling party of violence and intimidation, as we've been saying.
Situated by a ZANU-PF roadblock, an illegal one, but they were not arrested. I can tell you, in Spinge, it was the case just before Spinge, it was the case in Nyanga, it was the case in Gutu, and this has been happening. You know that they also killed our young man, Nyasha Jabu, again during that talk. Roadblocks, we have seen them. The Kwekwe violence and the Kwekwe violence are only but a series of activities.
Now, ZANU-PF's spokesperson in South Africa, Kennedy Mandaza, has denied that any ruling party supporters were behind the attacks.
ZANU-PF were very consistent with regards to the issue of violence. We condemn violence in its form and by whoever who perpetrates it. And it is therefore regrettable that at this particular point in time, where we have people in a rally, in the midst of the rally, as shown by the video, that commotion that took place is then said to be caused by ZANU-PF. But we leave it to the police to do that, to do their work. There is no benefit that the ZANU-PF derives from carrying out violence to its own people in the country. Therefore, I would want to categorically state that ZANU-PF has nothing to do with the skirmishes that are taking place in the country. And if there are individuals, they are not being sent by ZANU-PF because we have no business in instigating violence. These are the people that we wish to serve and would want to have peace and harmony in the country, like what the president has been preaching throughout the rallies and wherever he has gone. Peace, unity and harmony and love among its citizens. Therefore, as ZANU-PF, we have no business in violence at all.
The spokesperson for the Citizens Coalition for Change is advocate Fadzayi Mahere, and she joins us now from Harare. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Good to talk to you. It's been a very difficult weekend for your party.
It really has. In fact, I'd go so far as to say a very dark cloud hangs over Zimbabwe today as we mourn the death of a citizen, Mbongeni Ngube, who was unlawfully killed, murdered yesterday in cold blood for the sole reason that he believed different. He wore a yellow shirt, he went out to a rally and just aspired for a better Zimbabwe as the sort of political violence that takes us into the dark ages. I mean, how can you take a spear and pierce someone 3 times in the back until they die just because they're attending the rally of a political party you disagree with? It's simply unacceptable, it's unconstitutional, and it really, it's a foreboding of what's to come. And as the Citizens Coalition for Change, we've said that, one life is one life too many. He should never have lost his life over this.
Who do you hold responsible for this killing and this violence?
We hold ZANU-PF responsible for this. And I say so because, firstly, we had the incitement to violence by a very top official, in fact, second in command of ZANU-PF, who said that, his people, his party would crush the Citizens Coalition for Change like lice. Those genocidal comments are very reminiscent of what we used to hear in Rwanda in 1994, where, people were told to be killed. There was an incitement to kill people because they were cockroaches. Simply unacceptable to speak like that. But in addition to that, we've seen a police memo which indicated that at least 4 of the suspects were holding ZANU-PF cards. I mean, that's proof beyond any doubt that these are ZANU-PF members who are carrying out the political violence they've been incited to carry out. And there's no doubt in our mind that they're responsible, not to mention the fact that there's been a pattern of violence in Kwekwe, by ZANU-PF, exactly the same modus operandi of using knob carries, of using machetes, of using spears, beating people up with stones. That's exactly how what's called the Al-Shabaab gang operates, and it used to be led by the former Minister of State Security, who was a very close ally of Mr. Mnangagwa. This is all on record, so there's no doubt in our minds that it's ZANU-PF that's responsible. And the police memo went as far as to say, it's ZANU-PF members who are responsible for, intercepting these CCC members and causing the violence we saw that led to the death of Mbongeni Ncube.
Did the police offer any protection as your members were being assaulted and this poor man was being killed?
At the time, they didn't, which is why we saw violence as extensive as we did. A number of our members were badly injured. 23 of them had to be hospitalized, and they suffered very gruesome injuries to their head, injuries to their back, injuries to their lungs. A number of them have had, extensive medical assistance, died effectively on arrival at Kwekwe General Hospital. So, the police at the time did not offer the necessary protection and stop the violence. However, I have to say that they have apprehended about 16 persons, and we demand and insist on, a full prosecution of those responsible. According to the police memo, one of the persons, the person who apparently inflicted the fatal, knock or blow to Mbongeni Ncube is yet to be apprehended. We obviously insist on an intensive investigation to ensure that he's apprehended, and we want to see these accused persons actually prosecuted and brought to book for the gruesome murder and attempted murder on our supporters.
All right. So whilst the one that did the fatal attack, the others are guilty by common cause, I'm guessing.
Well, they were all participating. The doctrine of common purpose under our law is very clear. If you're a Sockius in this sort of a crime, you're equally responsible. Not to mention the fact that Mbongeni Ncube is not the only victim. We had several victims who were, assaulted by this gang, this criminal militia gang. And, there has to be accountability for their injuries as well. From the reports we received from our welfare department, there was a woman who was pregnant who was also beaten, who's now, in jeopardy as we speak, and her baby is also, her expected baby is also in jeopardy as a result of this violent, gruesome attack. We had a man in a wheelchair, who was also attacked. Completely gratuitous, unnecessary, unconstitutional violence, and it really, follows the pattern that we've seen ever since the formation of the CCC, an escalation of political violence. We saw it in Harare East. We saw it when our members were tortured by the police in Harare. We saw it just the day before in Gokwe, where the police unleashed tear smoke, unleashed dogs, violent dogs on our members, started beating them with battle sticks for absolutely no reason whatsoever. This is a rally that they themselves had cleared, and they only became violent because Mr. Mnangagwa had decided to hold a rally in the same province, and they were threatened by the level of support that the CCC enjoys. Unacceptable. They're in panic mode, and it really should not be allowed to continue. This points to Zimbabwe being a powder keg as we approach the 2023 harmonized election.
I mean, this is quite brazen for a group of people in the middle of the day to come where there are hundreds of supporters to carry out this act of violence. I mean, it's almost as if they fear nothing.
Yes, because for a very long time they've enjoyed impunity. They enjoy political protection. This is very well known. Anyone who resides in Bizo and Kwekwe is very aware of the fact that there is this militia gang that carries out these brutal attacks. In fact, our members who are running in the by-election for both Parliament and Council, have been terrorized when they try and do door-to-door campaigns. We've seen even against ordinary citizens, they carry out this sort of violence. So we're very disturbed but completely unsurprised by the conduct of the ZANU-PF militia. And what's really startling is that ZANU-PF leaders themselves have not come out to condemn this clear act of violence. And it's disturbing, as I said, that a senior leader in ZANU-PF would stand up and say, crush the CCC like lice. Where is the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission when this is being done? Where's the Human Rights Commission? Where's the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission that's supposed to ensure a fair playing field for all electoral players? We should be able to rally in peace. Politics that relies on spilling the blood of citizens is not the sort of politics we want to participate in. We want to win a fair electoral contest. If ZANU-PF believes it's got the support of the people, what is it afraid of? Why is it resorting to violence and murder in cold blood in order to, instill fear in the citizens who want to express themselves politically? They want transformation, they want change, and notwithstanding the repeated acts of violence, the citizens have been defiant and have been bold enough to still wear the yellow shirt and still stand up and still come to the rally and say, we demand change. What do? You beat them up. It's bad enough that this is a regime that's caused 49% extreme poverty. It's a regime that has caused the education system to completely break down and fail. The public health system is on its knees. The economy is completely collapsed and it's on its very last legs. The least the citizens could do is be allowed, to vote for an ethical leadership, a leadership that puts the citizens first. And that's all people are asking for. A better life in Zimbabwe, a government that cares about their welfare. Teachers should not be beaten up for standing up and saying we demand better pay. Doctors should not be persecuted for demanding better working conditions because they're incapacitated. Nurses should not have to down tools because the regime refuses and neglects to pay them a living wage. This is what Zimbabwe has been reduced to, and South Africa is feeling the effects of it. We've seen the forced migration crisis that's been caused by the bad governance disease caused and inflicted by ZANU-PF.
The last time we spoke, we talked about the unfairness or the imbalance in terms of what the opposition parties were allowed to do in terms of gatherings and political rallies. And the ruling party seemed to be able to carry on without any limitations. Has that carried on?
Yes, and it's actually getting worse. Constitutionally, the Zimbabwe Republic Police has an obligation to serve and protect citizens. What has it done instead? We've seen Mr. Mnangagwa allowed to carry out rallies where he buses in, thousands and thousands of people who, are very sad at those rallies and look like, they're in prison. But when we want to hold a rally, the police inflicts these unrealistic demands on us. I told you last time about the requirement that we don't chant slogans, that we don't sing. This last time, they're now saying that we should limit our rally to just 100 persons, and yet Mr. Mnangagwa, on the same day, 140 kilometers away, is allowed to have thousands and thousands of people all buzzed in using public service buses that are meant to be used by the public on a day-to-day basis. The selective application of the law has to stop. Even in Gokwe, We saw the police saying that we could not carry out our rally for the reason that they did not have manpower to man the rally, and yet they were there in full force with water cannons, with running dogs, with baton sticks, with tear smoke. They had the manpower to disrupt and stop and block the rally unconstitutionally, but they didn't have manpower to serve and protect the citizens. It's simply unacceptable. We don't see ZANU-PF being interfered with in the same way. We don't see these militia gangs coming to ZANU-PF rallies. We simply don't see the same sort of conduct. And so our demand is this: we demand a fair electoral contest. We demand an electoral process which allows every single citizen to express themselves freely without the threat of violence, without the threat of death, without the threat of being beaten with a Stone Age weapon like a knob carry or a machete. It's simply unacceptable that the Citizens Coalition for Change is being treated like a banned terrorist organization, and yet we've got the constitutional right under Section 67 to do all the activities which we are doing, and we've consistently preached the gospel of non-violence, and all we want is a better Zimbabwe where the citizens come first.
All right, and finally, the president of the country, has he said anything witnessing all this violence and seeing one of his citizens being killed?
Well, obviously, we say that his election in 2018 is disputed. But no, Mr. Mnangagwa has not said anything about a citizen who was killed in his own hometown, what he calls a stronghold, by a militia group that was carrying these weapons. He's been completely silent. And this is not conduct consistent with a leader who cares about the people, a leader who knows he's not responsible. Why the complete silence, especially when you know that your deputy in the party just a few days ago said, crush them like lice? It's simply unacceptable. This violence is the same violence that we saw after the 2018 election when the army was unleashed onto the street. The same violence we saw in 2019, and the Motlanthe Commission recommendations have not been implemented. It's the same violence we saw when the MDC trio were abducted, tortured, and sexually assaulted. It's the same violence we saw when Itai Zamara was abducted. It's the same violence we saw in 2008. It's this pattern of violence. It's the same violence we saw even as far back as Gukra Gundi. Violence is in their DNA, and that is the exact culture that has caused the Citizens Coalition for Change to rise up and say, no, we demand better for our nation. We want a nation of peace where everybody has the opportunity to access freedom, fairness, and prosperity. It's only fair, it's only constitutional, and it's only right. Mbongeni Ngube should not have died yesterday.
Advocate Fadzayi Mahere, the